There's quite a good chance that you found this video because you looked for Tron. You're considering investing into Tron, or you're already invested into Tron, and you're wondering, does it make sense to own Tron? And how does it stack up versus Cardano? You've probably never seen this chart here. This is the Tron price measured in Cardanos, or in other words, Tron divided by ADA. So you can see relative performance. How did Tron stack up versus Cardano? It doesn't look too pretty, right? Tron has lost over this time frame approximately 94% versus Cardano. And this trend seems to be quite stable. So either Tron is able to barely hold the same value as Cardano, or it's massively losing. There are only 3 brief periods where Tron was outperforming. So we got this run over here, 260%, this one over here, 180%, and recently 220%. So the way I look at cryptocurrencies is I always ask myself, what's the risk versus reward? What's the kind of risk that we take on when buying a certain cryptocurrency? And how much performance do I expect, relatively speaking? And so, of course, you could draw like some support lines over here, and you could imagine this price jumping back up and going, 160% against ADA. So either ADA would completely implode or Tron would go through the roof. But I don't know if it makes sense to really catch a falling knife here. Of course, there's a case to be made to go against the grain sometimes, to be contrarian. And when you are right, while the masses are wrong, that's where you make most gains. The problem, though, is that oftentimes the masses are right, and only in very extreme cases, the masses overreact, and then it's the time to take the counter position. But usually, the trend is your friend. I mean, just look at this long-term Bitcoin chart. Most of the time, if you follow in general what the trend is doing, so for example, you would take the moving average to gauge where the current trend is. Most of the time, you're right when you just do that. When prices rise, you're in the market. When prices fall, you should be outside of the market. But of course, most money is made when you buy in those very depressed times, because then you're looking, for example, here in this Bitcoin chart at a 20x. And so the way I approach this is I'm asking myself, what's currently the state of the market? What's the risk appetite? Is it too high? Is it too low? Is an asset maybe neglected? There's not a lot of talk, then it's potentially a good buy, because at least you're not paying a hype premium. But in general, that's what you need to ask yourself. Is the market currently heated? Because with Bitcoin, all other altcoins trade as well. If Bitcoin falls, very likely, no matter what you own, Cardano or Tron, they will fall as well. So you might remember this peak in 2017. When we reached those 20K, excitement was high, people bought into ICOs, and then the big crash happened. This 84-85% crash. But how do you know when to buy? I mean, if you are at this point in time, right? If the price goes up and then suddenly you see this drop and it dropped 66%, who would have thought that it drops even further? That 7K is not the bottom at all. That actually we will fall all the way down to 3K. How do you figure this out? What I like to look at is how high is the excitement in those very, very risky investments, or call it gambles maybe, where people surely don't buy the asset in order to hold it for the long term because they think this is a good project, but where people very clearly just buy in order to play the shuffling game from the early investors that get paid out by the later investors. So once you have this kind of dynamic going on, and that's what basically also happened in this ICO boom over here, right? People bought into the ICOs just when they launched in order to quickly dump those coins to the people that come in maybe a few weeks later. Once you have this kind of dynamic, and you already see this now with SafeMoon and Musk coin and whatever it all is, when people put their money in places in order to take money away from others just very short term, you see over time that the capital concentrates. So there are those few winners that make all the money, and there's a lot of losers. And those losers over time, they exit the market. And so what you can see here in this Bitcoin crash, what happened is that other coins, Tron obviously, but Cardano as well, they lost even heavier. And that's not because they are riskier coins, it's just because they were mainly bought just for short-term speculation, at least from most people. And so when you look at this crash period over here, from the peak in December 2017 to the absolute bottom in December 2018, 1 year later, you can see that the ADA to Bitcoin valuation got completely crushed. So not only did you lose like your 80-something% in Bitcoin, if you had ADA, you lost on top of this another 80%. So ADA in terms of US dollar valuation got completely destroyed. So that's what happens with those short-term gambles if Bitcoin can't raise in price anymore, if the overall sentiment goes negative. And so I dare to predict that if Bitcoin can't make new highs relatively quickly, if it continues going sideways or going slowly downwards, that especially those very, very risky coins, the ones that aren't even listed on Coinbase, those will probably bleed massively. And they will bleed for a really long time. They will stay low for a really long time. Because what happens after such a crash? People are not willing to get back into those coins quickly. This whole bull run that happened from December 2018 to the beginning of this year, that saw a 1000% increase in the Bitcoin price. In this whole bull run, ADA did not outperform. In fact, ADA underperformed. So even though you would have taken on more risk here, and even though you have a really big rally over here, being in something more risky didn't pay off. And I think the reason for this is because people that created this bottom here and that helped fuel this rally, they actually bought Bitcoin mainly to diversify their asset holding in general. So maybe they've got stocks and they put maybe 5% or so in Bitcoin. Maybe every month they buy a little bit. And so they see those depressed prices. They think, okay, I don't know if it will recover, but if it does, it's probably gonna go really high. And so I'm willing to risk a small fraction of my wealth into something that's comparatively safe to recover. With those other altcoins, this recovery is less likely. And obviously we have now seen a big recovery, but when did this happen? The recovery did not happen before the beginning of this year. So look at ADA to Bitcoin. It underperformed during this 10x rally, but then you had this big outperformance of 600% all of a sudden. And you see this picture not just in ADA, you see this picture in any coin. Look at ETH versus Bitcoin. The real outperformance happened beginning of this year with another 200% against Bitcoin. Look at Polkadot, same time frame, started recovering beginning of the year. And of course for our dear Tron, we've got the same thing, 160% against Bitcoin. So during this whole bull run, altcoins didn't do much. They underperformed and they started performing at the beginning of this year. And why is that? What happened here? I think what happened is that this bull run was driven by the DCA guys, then was fueled by institutional adoption. So the Michael Saylors of this world, the Elon Musks, and all the people that followed them. But then the retail crowd, they have noticed the market cap of Bitcoin over here is pretty high. And if you go already into crypto and you take on all this risk, you might as well invest with the expectation to not just get like a 20-30% ROI on your investment per year, but to make a multiple X. But a multiple X when you're with Bitcoin already at 40K. In order to go to 400K, you would need to reach the market cap of gold. So the upside potential here was limited. And so people added more risk. And when I now look at all the retail crowd, they are not interested into DCAing into Bitcoin. There's no action here anymore. People don't expect to make a lot of money with Bitcoin. What I mainly hear everyone asking is, what kind of altcoin should I invest in? Is it Tron? Is it Cardano? Is it SafeMoon even? Or Shiba or Doge? So the retail money now is all in those small, medium, super risky altcoin projects. And I think that's super bad. Because who is going to drive up the prices over here? Who is going to buy Bitcoin? The problem is that for altcoins to perform, Bitcoin has to go up. Show me a single altcoin. Just show me one that actually in US dollar terms made money during this crash. Or maybe even half through this crash. There are no altcoins that make money in bearish Bitcoin markets. Most altcoins don't even make money when the Bitcoin price is rising. They only start making money once Bitcoin grew too high and people look for riskier investments in order to gain more because they might have missed this whole rally over here. And so when the Bitcoin party is over, what's next? So retail isn't buying Bitcoin. I don't see a lot of people that have a stock portfolio and that now say, okay, let me invest 5% of my money into Bitcoin. That's rarely happening right now. And the same problem goes now with corporate demand. Elon Musk has already shown they're not accepting Bitcoin as payment anymore. Michael Saylor is kind of an outlier. He has this BI business. It wasn't doing too well, so he basically pivoted his whole company to become a Bitcoin holding entity. And since then, not a lot has followed. There's a bit of PayPal here and there, and Stripe also owns a bit, but nothing is following here. But a lot of money is needed to push up this price again. It's very easy for the price to fall, because when you accumulate Bitcoin over here or over here and you make your 10x return, you're going to rebalance your portfolio. You're going to sell Bitcoins, and this will make a massive US dollar denominated sell pressure here because Bitcoin is just so expensive. But how can now the market double from here? Where does all this money come from to bring us to, say, 75K? I don't have an answer to this. And I think most retail people don't believe that this will quickly happen either. Otherwise, why does this Bitcoin dominance stay so low? Is Bitcoin really now the worst of the assets in crypto land? No, obviously not. It's still the least centralized of the crypto assets. If the governments crack down on crypto and they go against all those development teams of all those altcoins, there's only one coin where there is no attack surface, and that's Bitcoin. So Bitcoin still is probably the best of the cryptos, but retail knows there is not a lot to gain in Bitcoin right now in percentage terms. And so if you all agree that all the money is now made in altcoins, or supposedly to be made in altcoins because their market cap is smaller, but at the same time we all think Bitcoin will have a really hard time to grow higher from here, how will the altcoins perform? Will Bitcoin become the number 5 cryptocurrency? I don't see that coming. I think the sell pressure on Bitcoin is on. Bitcoin will go sideways or slightly lower. It will basically bleed over time. And when Bitcoin bleeds, confidence in altcoins will go down as well. Now, how quickly will this happen? Who knows, right? But in the past crash, Cardano to Bitcoin bled super heavy. Tron to Bitcoin bled super heavy. Every altcoin got basically destroyed. And so the dominance of Bitcoin came from 36% all the way up to 72%. So I would be very cautious now with any altcoins. I don't like them. I personally own 0 altcoins right now, nothing. I don't see how altcoins in this current environment will make you money. If Bitcoin bleeds, altcoins will bleed against the US dollar for sure. And in the last crash, they even bled against Bitcoin. You had a loss in any way, no matter how you measured it, you were losing with altcoins. So should you buy Tron? No. Should you buy ADA? It's a stretch as well. I don't do it. There's obviously bad decisions and there's worse decisions. Buying Tron is probably the worst of the two. I currently just see why not invest into stocks? Why not move some of this crypto money back to stocks and wait until we have a really clear buying opportunity again? This here to me is not a really clear buying opportunity. If we hit this 4-year moving average, that's obviously a really clear buying opportunity. You want to be heavily into crypto whenever we reach this, but we are very far away from this. This is another 60% from here. So when we go to like 15K, that's when the retail people will buy in again for sure into Bitcoin. But in order for Bitcoin to pick up from these levels, altcoins must have completely failed already. Yeah, so I'm currently very much on the defense. If it rises, I'm okay. I still own a bit of Bitcoin. I'm not mad about gains, but really the longer I look at these charts, the longer I look at what's going on right now, the more I'm being reminded of what happened over here. There was this really big mania. People put money into all kinds of random stuff. And it's the same again. It really repeats itself. You have all these scammers, all these bots posting in Facebook, in YouTube comments. During this boom over here, it was mainly advertisements. So you had like paid ads on Facebook and Google pushing those ICOs. Those ads were then removed from those platforms. So Facebook didn't allow for ICO advertisements anymore. And so who knows what's gonna pop this bubble over here. It might be more regulation. It might just be lost momentum and a falling Bitcoin price. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure there are not a lot of buyers right now lining up to push Bitcoin higher. So yeah, there you have it. Buy some S&P 500 ETFs, wait for the price to fall, and then buy when all of this craziness is done. That's what I currently do. And I might be wrong, but I might also be right. So just be prepared for everything. Have a little bit invested into Bitcoin in case it really goes up from here, but also have a lot of money ready to deploy in case we drop further, which I think is the way more likely scenario from here. If you enjoyed this content, please give this video a like. YouTube will then show the video to a new audience. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't yet, and we've also got a Telegram channel in the video description down below. Feel free to join there as well. See you next time. Bye bye.